On the surface, The Doll in the Garden is a ghost story laced with time travel, but I think to me it is a story about friendship, second chances, and most importantly, redemption and forgiveness. It is the story of a 10-year-old girl, Ashley, whose father passed away, and so her and her mom moved to an apartment above an old lady's house. The lady, Mrs. Cooper, is mean and snide. Ashley also meets a neighbor girl a bit younger named Christy. While playing, they find a doll buried in a garden in a wooden box with the name Anna Maria. Shortly after they find the box, Ashley sees a cat that is white as snow, but casts no shadow on the ground. Soon after, she hears a child crying, but the sound seemed to come from a vacant lot through some shrubs. One night, Ashley follows the cat, named Snowball, through the shrub, and suddenly there's a house there. She meets a little girl named Louisa, who is dying. The little girl tells Ashley about her friend Carrie, and then they see her through the window where Ashley stays. Louisa tells Ashley that she has a doll named Anna Maria. When Ashley leaves and goes back through the bush, she turns to find a vacant lot again. Ashley then takes Christy through the bush with Snowball so she can meet Louisa. Finally, Ashley realizes that Mrs. Cooper is Carrie. When Ashley talks to Mrs. Cooper about the doll, she learns that her father would never let her have a doll of her own, so she borrows Louisa's doll, Anna Maria. But Louisa died before she could return it, and she felt guilty ever since. It takes some convincing, but Ashley and Christy take Mrs. Cooper through the shrubs with Snowball, and suddenly Mrs. Cooper is young again, like them. She is Carrie. She was able to return the doll to Louisa before she passed away. When they return to Mrs. Cooper's house, Mrs. Cooper is a different woman. Instead of being bitter and mean, she makes the kids some cookies and lemonade and tells them stories of Louisa. I like the fact that this is dealing with forgiveness and redemption. Ashley learns to deal with her father passing away. She realizes that she's very angry with her father that he died of cancer. After talking to her mom, she learns that her mom was also angry at her father, and together they learn to forgive him and forgive his death. They also forgive themselves for being angry with him, as they know it was never his choice. He loved them both very much. This helps Ashley bond with her mom, instead of pushing her away in anger. This also helps Mrs. Cooper heal by taking her back in time to give Louisa the doll. That mends Mrs. Cooper's heart, and she's finally able to move past guilt. As I have struggled with my past demons and learning my place among society, I have had counseling sessions along the way. One counselor had explained to me about our blocked expectations and lack of forgiveness, and how they can cause depression, and how that can spiral out of control. If I went in to talk to her about something, the first question she usually asked me was, "Did you forgive them?" And that was also followed up with, "Did you forgive yourself?" As far as my past demons go, I have struggled to forgive. I know now that if I had forgiven sooner, then things wouldn't have been as bad as they were for the longest time. It's hard to forgive people who make you feel worthless, but in the end, I know that it was worth it. I am still struggling to find my self-worth and to find my place in this world, but I know I'm making that journey one step every day. Thinking about Mrs. Cooper in the story, I completely see why she was so bitter. She wanted a doll of her own, but her father refused for her to have one. And then when she was able to borrow Anna Maria, she wasn't able to give the doll back. That was a huge blocked expectation on her part. She had always meant to give the doll back, but before Louisa died, she couldn't return the doll, and so she never forgave herself. Forgiveness, even if it's to forgive oneself, is so important. It's such a hard thing to exercise. It doesn't matter what the situation is. Forgiveness is not something that just happens. It takes a lot of practice, and even with years and years of practice, it can be hard to forgive others or oneself. Sometimes it's easier to stroke our own ego than we are to think that we're better off being angry, and that eventually it'll go away on its own. But I can tell you that it never goes away. Forgiveness is a powerful tool, and it's sad that many people don't use it. Even I don't use it on a regular basis. Sometimes it takes me a long time to forgive something. I hold on to it as if it's a precious ring that needs guarding. In the end, I eventually realize I do need to forgive, and when I do, the peace washes over me, and that is absolutely amazing. I then have to forgive myself for holding on to the anger for so long. Each step is important. The change in Mrs. Cooper is amazing. Instead of being grumpy, crotchety, and all around mean, she smiles and tells Ashley and Christy about the wonderful Louise and how she was so wonderful. She invites the girls in for lemonade and bakes them cookies. This is a great book, and I'm very glad I read it. I learned a lot from the book. I hope I can model forgiveness and redemption to my students. They will make mistakes, but I hope they understand that it's okay to make mistakes if they've learned from them. I hope they learn forgiveness and how powerful it is. I think it's something that should be shown in school. Many kids do not get a chance to experience that. I hope to show kids that when they make mistakes, I will be able to forgive them, and I hope that they learn from their mistakes.